That's about as complicated a forearm milling as I've ever seen or done. It's well built, it's well made, it's secure. They've got a little T mill right there. A little block sits sideways and a bolt comes through the back and fastens, and it draws this thing in tight. It's really well thought out. But this was so thin between the inside of all this milling and the bottom of the stock, so thin, they didn't really have any choice but to mill it well and make it snug, because well, obviously it's a thin stock. That's where it broke, right in this thin part. You can see there's just not a whole lot left in there. So although they gave it a shot, I think they took too much out of it. There's no reason that they should have taken, you can see this, right in here is really wide. They milled out a bunch. And right up in here they milled out more than they need to as well. Alright, I have cut the thickness of this down. I'm just duplicated this other one. I left it a little tiny bit thicker all the way around for sanding and like that. But I just took put me a mark down the edge of this and put it on a bandsaw and just cut that off with a bandsaw. Took this part off. Now I've got the hole that I drilled perpendicular to the other end of this metal, and I've got my hole centered, and I've made me some marks, a center line here, and I'm going to lay out this escutcheon. Now, because a pencil mark, the pencil has a certain thickness to it, that pencil mark is outside that line. So when I start milling this out, I'm going to leave that pencil mark. Most metal, including this one, has got a little bit of a taper down. So when you start marking this out, the top edge is going to be a little bit proud of the bottom because of that taper. I can put this in my mill and take it out, but I could probably do it easier by hand because this is curved. There's a slight curved little crown in this, and there's a curve in this metal. I can use a Dremel. I've actually got a little tiny base, like a little router base for this Dremel that I could put on there, and that would give me a certain depth. I'll probably mic this and see if it's the same consistent thickness from here to here to here, and do it that way. It can be done with any number of tools, whatever you're most comfortable with, but I have, like I said a while ago, I've bandsawed this to that contour, then I've sanded this with a block, and I'm sorry I forgot to turn the video recorder on, but you didn't miss anything. Sanding's pretty boring anyway. just take a minute here and explain something. Routers and Dremels and drills, well, drills go both ways, but things that go one way go clockwise. And the teeth on these things are cut to go cutting in a clockwise manner. If you're going in a cutting stroke, it prone to dig in. If you go backwards, it tends to ride over, and it's a lot less aggressive. It makes a smoother cut, and you don't end up with dips and gouges that you wish you didn't have. Being my light, I'm coming in with a slant through this opening, I can see better from this side. It's hard for me to see on this side. So that's the reason I just turned my wood piece around. Because I've got this screw hole lined up and centered up with this escutcheon, now I can drill that screw hole. And you can do that with just something as simple as a Dremel. This screw hole, when it's drilled, comes in contact with a hole that is in the bottom of this metal along and right in here. I should be able to drill this one by hand because this escutcheon is a drilling template for me. Right there. Well, mechanically, it functions. Ejectors work. Tight as Dick's hat band. Both barrels fire. Ejectors come out on time, like they're supposed to. The escutcheon is in, it's at level. Now I've just got to do the final shaping. I don't think they're going to like the square version, but fine piece. Fine piece. Tight, very tight. Hard to get together though. These things were made. You had to really get your ducks in a row to get these things together and apart. Part of it is the massive spring behind these ejectors. They, I don't know what they were thinking, but they are nice once they work. Alright, I've got this thing fitted and I put some epoxy. I epoxy between wood and metal everywhere there's fasteners. In other words, not between the barrels and the edge of the wood, inside of the wood, but where there's fasteners, where this is screwed onto here, where this is screwed into here, I epoxy it because it keeps water and oil out of those recesses and those ends between this the metal and the end of the wood here. I always just seal that up with epoxy. I take walnut dust, mix it with epoxy, and then put a very thin coat in there, clamp it in place, put it in place with the screws, and so it just seals it up and it takes out any microscopic little cracks. It fits like it grew there. Alright, I've got that done and I've put some tape around this to protect it, and I'm going to start shaping the outside of this. It's functional, it works, it breaks down, the ejectors work, it caulks. I can't do that with these blocks taped to it, but these blocks are something I can put my clamp on my vise, set it in my vise so I can work on this. Now I've looked at the original and I've measured it, and the original is about 1/8 of an inch narrower up here at the front than it is down here at the back. The back, and it's all centered. Everything's equidistant. The reveal on both sides of this barrel are the same, and so I'm going to start doing the cosmetic part of it. I'm going to be using draw knives, spoke shave, files, rasp, everything, the whole arsenal. You can't just put you got to be careful what you just set in your vise, because you can squish things. A shotgun barrel especially, you never want to put a shotgun barrel in a vise. You can smash it flat in a heartbeat, never even realize you've done it. I may just take it out of here and just shave the sides down with a jointer and then put it back on. If I take it down to a mark, if I make a mark, I can shave it down to the mark and be good. It's got to go about 1/8 in the front and about 1/16 in the back. Now, I will measure this before I carry on, but that's what's called a swag mark. Swag is a scientific term, if you know what that is. It's an engineering expression. You may Google it if you want to. Alright, I just narrowed this down on a jointer. I took about 1/16 off the back and about 1/8 off the front, and I had made some marks. I left my marks. You can see where I planed, or it's not a planer, it's a jointer, but I see that mark. I left it there on both sides so that that'll give me room to sand. There's a pencil mark right there, and I left about the thickness of the pencil mark, because you always have to leave room to sand. You can always make it smaller. It's kind of hard to add to it. Now I've got to take off about 1/8 of an inch off the top of these barrels. Nothing at the back to 1/8 at the front. Where I got that 1/8 of an inch is comparing it to the original. It's really nice to have the original. Many times I don't. I'll need to leave that 1/8 of an inch mark too. To go from nothing to something, don't ever let your plane iron come all the way back to the back. Just start cutting from somewhere forward of the back, and then reduce that space a little bit at a time. Keep an eye on your mark. This rounds over to nearly a knife edge on top. You want to be careful about the pressure that you put on these things in a vise, because you can absolutely, if you get up here where the cavity is, you put too much pressure on that, you can absolutely squish a forearm. Just crush it and make you feel really bad. If you stay down here where it's thick, you're okay.